In 2007, a Japanese man, Tatsuya Ichihashi, was sentenced to life in jail for the rape and murder of Lindsay Hawker, a British teacher. Lindsay was a positive presence and an enchantment of beauty. She loved and relished her job as a teacher, and the Nova School, where she worked in Japan, adored her for her noble and ethical manner. Her killer, Tatsuya Ichihashi, was born in the Gifu Prefecture, east of Tokyo. Police described him as a loner with an obsession for physical fitness. In addition, Ichihashi also had an interest in a violent cult, which some reporters linked to the murder case. After strangling Lindsay to death, Ichihashi had cosmetic surgery to change his appearance, including cutting his own lip and removing moles from his face to avoid being caught. Eventually, however, on November 10, 2009, the Japanese news media reported that police had apprehended Ichihashi, who went into hiding after the police discovered Lindsay's battered-and-bound body buried naked in the bathtub on the balcony of the assailant's flat. So what led to Ichihashi's arrest after disappearing for years? Why would Judge Masaya Hata rule against Ichihashi receiving the death penalty and offering a chance of rehabilitation for someone who raped, murdered, scalped, and mutilated his own face to avoid justice and then went on the lam for years? We'll unravel everything here. But before we begin, please kindly subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more true crime and strange internet cases. Lindsay Ann Hawker was a 22-year-old British teacher born to Bill and Julia Hawker. The family lived in Coventry, England, but their home was in Brandon, Warwickshire, a village outside Coventry. Lindsay attended King Henry VIII School and studied biology at the University of Leeds, where she graduated with a first-class honors degree in 2006. In October of the same year, a thirst for adventure forced the Leeds graduate to Japan. She obtained a job teaching English at the Koiwa Nova School, the country's largest English conversation school in the Chiba Prefecture. On the other hand, Tatsuya Ichihashi, after graduating from college, lived on an allowance of $760 from his parents. The 28-year-old, as of then, resided in the city of Ichikawa in Chiba, and despite having no previous convictions before gaggling Lindsay to death, Ichihashi had been alleged of theft and assaulting a man on the street during a robbery, but the case was settled out of court. During her time in Japan, Lindsay used Skype, email, and telephone calls to maintain contact with her family and friends. Narrating to her boyfriend how she met Ichihashi in an email message, Lindsay revealed that the murderer chased her while cycling home and asked her for a glass of water when she arrived. Lindsay, being someone with natural kindness of spirit for how she treated, thought about, and spoke to others, felt motivated to help the young man she deemed tired and thirsty for covering such a distance running after her. Unfortunately, she never knew her act of kindness would be perceived as vulnerability. She allowed Ichihashi inside her flat and showed him to her two foreign flatmates. Lindsay told him that she was an English teacher while Ichihashi was drinking a glass of water. Afterwards, Ichihashi drew a picture of Lindsay and signed it with his name, telephone number, and email address. The pair agreed to meet for an English lesson at a cafe 4 days later, which was permitted by the Nova School. Lindsay and Ichihashi met in a cafe on Saturday, March 24, 2007. After that, the two left for Ichihashi's apartment. It was reported that Lindsay told the taxi driver that took them to his apartment to wait for a short time, but a few minutes later, the taxi driver left after she failed to return. After all means to reach Lindsay by the Nova School had failed, they reported Lindsay missing the next day. Lindsay's roommates, who were also worried, had tried to contact the police, but the message was not conveyed to the proper authorities within the department. The police later stormed the suspect's apartment but were not permitted to knock without adequate cause. As they sensed Ichihashi escaping on foot, and been aware of the previous allegations made against him, the police chased after him. One officer grabbed his rucksack, but Ichihashi continued to flee. None of the officers had radios, so those on the 4th floor could not alert those on the ground. Ichihashi eluded the officers by vaulting the last few feet of the stairway to the ground and zigzagging through the streets. The officers returned to the apartment, searching for the missing woman, and were stunned to discover her body in a bath full of sand on the balcony of the 4th floor apartment. Investigators found that she had been bound and gagged with plastic ties and scarves, with one of her hands lying outside of the mixture. The scars and bruises on Lindsay's body occurred when the assailant struggled to force the victim to his wish. And since Lindsay and Ichihashi were both familiar with martial arts, the struggle became so intense that the more experienced Ichihashi broke the cartilage in Lindsay's neck and allegedly raped her to death. Afterwards, he shaved her head and strewed her possessions across the room. The police sent CCTV footage showing Lindsay and Ichihashi hours before she was strangled to death to media houses and broadcast it on Japanese television. Hundreds of mourners, including Japanese ambassador Yoshiji Nogami, gathered to pay their last respects at a funeral service for Lindsay at the Coventry Cathedral. Afterwards, Margaret Beckett, then Foreign Secretary, traveled to Japan and appealed to the Japanese media to devote more coverage to the murder. Warwickshire police also flew to Tokyo to help the family correspond with the Japanese police team. While the Tokyo police were actively investigating the case, the victim's family was launching an email campaign and circulating letters titled, "Don't Forget Lindsay Hawker." The family continued to appeal for the readers' help and asked them to forward it to as many people as possible. Bill Hawker never stopped handing out leaflets featuring Ichihashi's face. He would share them at airports, including London Heathrow Airport, where he used them to mark the 6-month anniversary of his daughter's death. In March 2008, the family flew to Japan to mark the first anniversary of Lindsay's death and appealed for new leads. When the victim's family returned to Tokyo on the 2nd anniversary of Lindsay's death, they unveiled life-size talking cutouts of Ichihashi to raise the profile of the investigation. By October 2008, over 140 officers were involved in the investigation. Later, the officers who thought they had checked almost all the nooks and crannies of the town stalled the investigation and suggested that Ichihashi may have committed suicide. The idea of stalling the investigation and suggesting suicide did not sit well with Bill Hawker. He called it a ploy to scale down the operation. Nevertheless, reports speculating about Ichihashi's location continued, and the hunt resumed. On January 26, 2009, the Japanese National Police Agency raised the cash reward for information leading to the suspect's arrest from 1 million yen to 10 million yen. On November 4, 2009, police released pictures of Ichihashi after undergoing plastic surgery at a clinic in Nagoya and had his nose uplifted. Ichihashi, then 30, was thought to have had cheek implants and lip thinning. On November 10, 2009, Ichihashi was captured by Japanese police at a ferry terminal in Osaka while trying to escape to Okinawa, and he was held in police custody in Osaka. Ichihashi did not confess, and after 23 days of detention without charges, he was charged with abandoning Lindsay's corpse and served 2 more warrants for rape and murder. Later that month, one of Ichihashi's lawyers announced that he acknowledged that his client was involved in Lindsay's death, but he had not intended to kill her and had attempted artificial resuscitation. In court, Ichihashi admitted to the murder, disclosing that he suffocated the victim to prevent her from screaming for help while he raped her. In January 2011, Ichihashi published a book titled "Until I Was Arrested," confessing to Lindsay's killing and revealing how he spent 2.5 years in hiding and underwent plastic surgery. Ichihashi offered Lindsay's family all royalties his book might earn, but the family rejected him. On July 21st, 2011, the victim's family arrived in Japan ahead of the trial at the Chiba District Court. Lindsay's family asked for the heaviest sentence available for such a crime under Japanese law, but the court felt that the death penalty was inappropriate because Ichihashi had no previous convictions, and since he was just 32 at the time, there was a chance that he could still be rehabilitated. The presiding judge, Masaya Hata, said, "Ichihashi has no criminal record and is not a criminal by nature. He is still young. Perhaps he has a chance to make a new start or to be corrected." And thus, Ichihashi was sentenced to life in prison at the Chiba District Court. After getting justice for his daughter, Bill Hawker told reporters, "We've waited 4.5 years to get justice for Lindsay, and we've achieved that today. We are very pleased." His wife Julia and their 2 daughters, Louise and Lisa Hawker, thanked everyone, including the British and Japanese police, as well as the members of the public who reported the sighting that led to Ichihashi's arrest in Osaka. Lindsay was well loved by her friends and family. She was successful, cheerful, and irreplaceable. Sadly, it was her kindness that was used against her by a strange, heartless man. Do you think that the presiding judge, Masaya Hata, was fair in her judgment by offering a chance for rehabilitation to Ichihashi, considering the gravity of his crime? Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and please don't forget to check out our other binge-worthy true crime stories. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next one.